Oh, I know. So it popped into my head uh, because personally, I'm feeling a little lost.
Yeah.
Where I am on the nutrition end, and you know, in a way, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm always willing to try something different, trying to see what works the best, what's the easiest for my lifestyle. Um, and I can only imagine what other people are going through. And I know you've posted a lot of stuff, but not everybody that I'm in contact with gets to see that.
Yeah.
And in this crazy time where there's a lot of uncertainty and it's hard to decide like what are my goals or what were my goals or what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to eat? How much am I supposed to be working out? Uh, I just kind of thought of these things in my head. I'm like, I'm kind of okay because sure, I gained a few extra lbs. It's part of it. For whatever reason, and it's not that I'm eating more. It's not that like I'm not snacking more. If anything, something that I've kind of figured out is I have less of an appetite.
Mm.
And it's like I'm not really changing anything. Like, the stuff that I do in the morning, the cup of coffee I have with, MCT oil or heavy cream is the same. The piece of toast that I have around 10 o'clock is this. Like nothing changed over the last 2 months. And I generally work out every single day, but it's like I still feel a little fluffy at times.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah.
But it's starting to think like, are other people freaking out? And like, what should we be doing and what should we be focusing on now?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot to say on this, and I'll start out. Do you know like you ever heard about these CEO business people who wear the same damn suit every day? Like they basically have the same suit or the same outfit every day.
Yeah. Steve Jobs is popular for that.
Yeah, so Steve Jobs, people like that. And one of the reasons they do that is because they're making so many decisions throughout their day. And we have this decision battery or this willpower battery in our brain that every time we make a decision, we drain some of that battery. And so you run into decision fatigue. And so what happens is you want to keep things relatively consistent. That's one of the reasons they do that. Now that same process, whenever your sort of normal day-to-day rhythm gets disrupted, the body thrives off of routine and ritual. And it's a shortcut, because what it does is if you are having decision fatigue, the brain goes, let me create a habit so I can remember that habit. So I have more of a battery so I don't get decision fatigue. That's a decision I don't really have to make. I can do it automatically. It's like when you get in the car, you don't have to remember how to do the turn signal, you're not thinking about putting your foot on the brake. It's all habit now, right? Well, the same thing can be applied to nutrition. And so one of the things we have to realize is, number one, your routine and your rhythm is disrupted. You're in a whole other environment, a whole other routine, and a whole other rhythm. Now, what a lot of people try to do is they try to fit their old rhythm and routine into this new environmental reality. And that is the first thing to remember. And so I like to, whenever there's a lot of stress or a lot of things going on, I like to go to Plan B nutrition. And Plan B nutrition basically looks like this for me. It's chicken and broccoli. And another way of saying chicken and broccoli is chicken and greens. And another way of saying chicken and greens is meat and vegetables. And another way of saying that is soups, salads, scrambled shakes, and stir fries, right? So to me, you just go to this very simple thing where it's like meat and veg, meat and veg, meat and veg, soups, salads, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. And what this is kind of like Steve Jobs wearing the same, sort of, hoodie or suit every single day. It takes the decision out of it. Honey, what are we having for dinner? Meat and vegetables, chicken and broccoli, okay? Now, obviously, what happens is, so for me, I would essentially, and I have this now, I'm going to Bristol Farms every week, and they cook the chicken breast for you, and they have the rotisserie chicken, and I've actually lost weight. I've been getting fat for years, but I finally lost weight during this quarantine, you know what I mean? Partly because I just went chicken and broccoli, and I made it super simple for myself. If you're at home, though, you could cook up a bunch of chicken and greens and broccoli and salad greens, soup, salad, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. Have your whey protein. Keep it very simple. And what happens is this takes a lot of the decision away from things. And so, yes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, meat and veg, or eggs and veg. That's why soups, salads, scrambled shakes, and stir fries works really well, right? Because think about a scramble. It's just a salad with eggs, right? Think about a soup. It's just a salad with lots of water. Think about a salad. Well, a salad's a salad. Think about a stir fry. It's a hot salad, right? So essentially what we're doing is we're basically giving everyone variations of salads, and then, you know, a smoothie, which is basically a salad blended up in, you know,
fruit salad.
A fruit salad, exactly. So this is where you start with nutrition. That's why I say soup, salad, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. There's 5 different ways of saying salads with protein, basically. Now from there, right, now you can essentially say, oh, like you're staying with your in-laws, right? So it's like, oh, the in-laws are cooking, you know, something else. Cool. I'll save the chicken and broccoli that I have in the fridge for tomorrow, right? And so what happens is you just have this base that you go to where it's like chicken and broccoli, soup, salad, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. They're always there. They're always available. They're always ready, right? And so, but then you can have flexibility as other opportunities come up. Someone comes over and says, hey, I brought you some blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, someone, you know, cooks something different, or you're in the mood, you know, for something else. But what happens is the decision fatigue is taken out of it. And the way to think about this is just to essentially say, what is the lowest calorie, most nutrient dense, most hunger suppressing foods on the planet? Soup, salad, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. That's what will do that. So if you have that base of hunger suppression, nutrient density, right, and low calorie, then you're probably not going to get in too much trouble with nutrition if you break it here and there with a bottle of wine, or a couple handfuls of nuts or something like that. Though you run into problems with this when you're kind of in this different situation, when you're just like, I'm going to wing it, because then the handful of nuts turns into 4 or 5 handfuls of nuts. And the peanut butter, you know, turns into 3 or 4 tablespoons of peanut butter. And then you're dipping into the chips just a little bit too much. And all of a sudden, you're not actually able to keep up with how much you're eating, because it's just all over the place. And so for me, this is the first step. We all have our plan A that we know when we're at home. And by the way, I teach this with people who travel a lot too. I'm like, you understand, you need to have a travel plan, right? And you need to have a home plan. And you need to have a weekday plan and a weekend plan. So most people just say, I got plan A. That's what works for me. And when that stops working, they get confused. And I go, no, you need plan A, then you need plan B, and then you need plan C, and then you need plan C when you're traveling, right? And then you need plan B when you're staying with the in-laws, you know? And so, but the base plan needs to be very structured. And so that's the whole idea of the soup, salad, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. Another way of saying that is meat and vegetables. Another way of saying that is chicken and broccoli. Stick with that as your base. You won't get confused. When in doubt, that's what you're eating. No other choice. Don't worry about it. That's what's happening. And then if you have the opportunity to have something else, have it. But if you can get 90% of your food in the form of those things, then you're going to be winning. And there's one other thing I'll say, and then I'll see where you want to go with this. The other thing I'll say is there's one other place where you can solve decision fatigue. Just simply decide what you're going to do for your workout energy, right? Many times, like back when I was my leanest, when I actually first met you, it's not my leanest, but the leanest probably since I've met you, is one of the things I did was after every workout, I had a protein shake. One of the things was, it was something to look forward to, just a dopamine cookie that I could have after my workout. I earned this protein shake. The other thing is it had a real sort of effect on, okay, this is helping me allay hunger so I don't go home and eat a boo-boo burrito. So what you want to also do, perhaps, if you're still working out like crazy, is think about the decision around, your workout. Are you going to do like a banana before the workout to give you energy, and that's your carb, or in your case, maybe toast or something like that, where you're like, this is my carbohydrate prior to, and that's my other thing? Or are you going to have a post-workout sort of recovery thing? And that way, there's only 2 decisions when it comes to food. Decision 1, chicken and broccoli, soup, salad, scrambled shakes, and stir fries. Decision 2, what I do around workouts. Everything else is flexible. When in doubt, you go back to those two things.
I love that you constantly remind me of those things. It's like, yeah, always default to those. You did mention something about like disruption, and how does like this disruption and maybe the stress of what we're all dealing with, how can that like affect like what we expect to see when we look in the mirror?
Mm. Yeah, well, dude, here's the interesting thing about this, and this is where, there's this whole debate you and I hear about all the time because we talk about it all the time. People go, it's all calories, and then you have a whole other thing say it's not calories, it's insulin and hormones. The fact is, it's both. But here's the answer to this: anyone who says it's all calories, all you have to do is ask them this simple question. Let me ask you, man, how many calories does sleep have, and how many calories does stress have? And what they will immediately say to you is they will go, well, obviously sleep and stress don't have any calories. And then the next question to them is, do you think when you're sleep deprived and overstressed that it affects what you eat? And then their calorie argument completely implodes on itself, because of course it does. Research shows it does. And then you go, okay, well, why is that the case? Because of hormones. The two are linked, right? So if you want to know why you're potentially running into issues now, it's stress and sleep. Yes, they have no calories on the surface, but they do a couple things, and I'll just go through it real quick with everyone so they can kind of understand this. Stress releases cortisol, which we now know there's some debate about this, but pretty much we know now when cortisol is released by itself without high intensity exercise, because when you exercise high intensity, you do a CrossFit workout, you're jacking your cortisol through the roof. The difference is,
I think you cut out. You cut out there for a moment.
yeah, I'm barely getting you now too.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
No? Test. Let me see.
Is that you or is that me?
Say something.
Yeah.
No?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah,
I think I lost you I think you lost me when you took the things out.
I took them off. I just took them off.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't, they died. That's weird.
Hold on, let me see on my end.
Try speaking now.
Got me? One,
Yeah,
two,
yeah.
three. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I was losing you every now and then too, but you came back on.
I think that was probably me.
Okay. Yeah, so basically what I was saying is that with stress, here's the mechanism, and first let's talk about stress a little bit. Like in the end, like people go, well, I'm not really stressed, I'm handling it fine. And the reason why is because, it's kind of like you and me, we're both these kind of guys. Like if I ask Brian, is he stressed? You're such a laid back dude. Like it's hard. I'm sure you might be feeling stressed on the inside, but like maybe you are, maybe you're not. But like to me, you just handle your emotions. So do I, right? So just because you're not feeling anxious or depressed or emotionally overwhelmed does not mean you're not stressed, right? You are stressed when you are dealing with any kind of change and challenge. Now, change and challenge is how we grow. But when that stress starts getting too much and too much and too much, cortisol starts going up unopposed. And what I mean by that is that when you work out, cortisol goes through the roof, but it also comes along with testosterone and human growth hormone when you're working out, which makes cortisol work for you. However, when you're under stress and you're not in a workout and cortisol is going way up, here's what it does to the brain. It shuts down the motivation centers. It ramps up the reward centers. It makes you basically not be able to, say no to cookies and ice cream. And it makes you love those things. It makes you seek those things out. It's really interesting when they stress out mice in studies, which they have a very similar metabolism to humans. And the way they stress them out in different ways. They'll throw them in cold ice. They'll put them in mazes where they can smell cheese but never find the cheese. When they're really mean, they shock them. Or they put them, the worst thing is they'll put them in the cage with an aggressive mouse, or even just pump aggressive pheromones from another mouse into the mouse cage. So they do all these things. And so what happens to these mice is the same thing that happens to humans. What they do is mice normally, if they're not stressed, what they will do is they'll exercise spontaneously. They'll jump on their wheels and they'll kind of spontaneously exercise and run around. They graze throughout their feeding period. So they'll eat lots of small little meals. But if you stress them out too much, guess what they do? They go sit in the corner of the cage. They don't move much. They stop their movement, which makes sense, right? Because if there's an owl or predator, if there was a pterodactyl outside and every time me and you went outside and it could like take Brian and haul him away, me and him wouldn't go out, too often. We try to stay in more. So the mice stay in a corner, they move less. And then what happens is if you give them a choice between higher calorie pellets and lower calorie pellets, they know the difference and they will crush those higher calorie pellets, or they'll eat a whole bunch at one meal and stop the grazing pattern. So what happens to us humans? We do the same thing when we get stressed. Everyone, like this is famous in rom-coms and stuff like that, where it's like, woman gets her heart broken and she sits on the couch and craving Ben and Jerry's. It's like the same kind of thing. So what stress does is make us want to move less, even unconscious movement, like NEAT, like non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We unconsciously move less. We're less motivated to exercise, and we start craving highly palatable foods. This is what stress does to us. The other thing cortisol does is it makes us hold on to water. So even if you have not put on any fat, cortisol makes you hold water a little bit, makes you puffy, right? So what happens is you may not have gained any fat, but you look like you did because you have a water sheen, a cortisol layer of water on top of you, right? Cortisol also makes us more insulin resistant. So any calories we do eat, we're more likely to go to fat storage instead of muscle gain, right? And so this is what is happening here with people. So the idea is, here's what you have to realize. If you didn't realize it yet, yes, diet, yes, exercise, but stress management, going for a nice long walk, hanging out, meditating, physical affection, massage, time with pets. Actually, one of the best things is creative pursuits. They've done a whole series of things with, adults where they'll use things like calligraphy or coloring or doodling and stuff like this. And just being in your creative space actually lowers these stress hormones. And it seems weird that how is me coloring and doing these creative things lowering? It's because it lowers your stress burden. And by the way, a lot of those activities, are incompatible with eating, right? If you're walking, you're typically not going to be eating. If you're hanging out in a hot bath, you're typically not going to be eating. If you're having sex, you're typically not going to be eating. If you're doing, if you're hanging out with your pets, you're typically not going to be eating. So it also has this other sort of effect. So that's partly what we need to be looking at, all of you who are dealing with this. And by the way, yes, you can do workouts that deal with this too, but the only types that do it are slow, relaxing walking, not power walking. 2, very relaxing, restorative yoga. Most yoga is pretty intense, but the relaxing yin type of yoga is very good. And Tai Chi is also another form of relaxing movement. Those are really the only 3 that lower these stress hormones. So I don't know if that's what you were asking. That's part of what's happening though, and it is directly influencing how much we eat, how often we eat, and how big our meals are, and the types of food we choose to eat.
No, I think you nailed it. That's exactly what I was looking for. And everything that you mentioned, there are things that we can all do given the constraints we all have. You mentioned like coloring was one I've heard about. And I've known people that have bought like adult coloring books and will just like color because they said it just relaxes them.
Mm-hmm.
I've never tried it myself. I'll say that back. I've done it. I did it on I did it on like a computer or like a laptop that had it. I mean, I didn't do it for that reason, but it ended up taking like 10 to 15 minutes of my time because I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because I'm also learning a new skill. Like I've never used like a pen on an iPad to like color. And there's like so many things you need to do, like select a different color, select the different thickness of your pen, select the brush stroke. So it was like really enamored or was like really into or interested in just like playing with this. And I remember it was colored like a dinosaur or something.
Yeah.
But no, like all those things you mentioned, like, you can do all these things given our current situation.
Yeah.
And it sounded like you mentioned something earlier. I remember you saying something earlier, like the way you register stress isn't it's not the same. Like we don't all register it the same way. Like I think you said, like you can deal with it, or like we can deal with it well, but there's we're still stressed. There's still stress. Like I feel it, and that's something that I do know. Like the times that I'm the most stressed out, like my diet could be just super legit. Like I could be just doing everything right, but the needle doesn't move, the scale doesn't move, and it's like, that becomes stressful in its own self, in its own right. Like so constantly worried about losing weight or getting leaner, but also like having the stress of another child coming,
Yeah.
or not being able to run fitness classes, things like that. And I think that's why for me, I haven't worried so much about it, because I'm just like, we're getting by and we're doing okay. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
It could be a lot worse. And I think one way that I've learned to manage it and just be okay with it has been, I'm like, how am I not craving sweets or just like some sort of like cheat meal? Like I've been asking myself that. I'm not like trying to say that, you know, oh, like I really just have it tame, but like, come on, like, why am I not craving like a Father's Office hamburger? Like this really rich burger. I'm not craving like ice cream or cake or pizza. I'm like, come on, like I gotta live a little
I have
bit.
an answer to that too, man. We rise to the level of our training. It's the same way if you and I went to, we all of a sudden dropped off in Baghdad, like back when back when guns were going off all the time, we would freak the hell out. But someone who has had the training, boot camp, and then, done several tours or whatever, is going to be looking at us like, what? Your metabolism is somewhat trained and more flexible, so it's less reactive. But all of us have to sort of earn that. And rest assured, you can slip back. A couple things I'll say about stress too, because we're talking to all our peers, all our friends over at the box, and we're all exercise nuts. Well, guess what? There's something called exercise snacking that a lot of us don't think about, that is super powerful to deal with stress. And all that is that when you get anxious, especially if you feel anxious, this will allay your anxiety. I guarantee you, if you get anxious and you're I don't know, your significant other's watching, the news, and you're getting riled up about politics, or, you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do about finances or whatever? What you do is do the following. You go, what is my anxiety right now on a scale of 1 to 10, right? 10 being, I'm just anxious through the roof. Let's say you rank it an 8. Now, I guarantee you, if you do a burpee squat jump, like a burpee push-up chain, let's say, this is what I teach people to do. You go down, do a push-up at the bottom, come up, do a squat jump, then down for 2 push-ups, up for 2 squat jumps, then down for 3, up for 3, down for 4, up for 4, and set your clock for 1 minute. You take your mobile device, you go 1 minute timer, and you crank on this for 1 minute. When you finish that, what you've essentially done is you have allayed, you've kind of hit the anxiety, stress hormone reset button. Because here's what happens when you start getting anxious: whether a lion is attacking you or not, or whether you think a lion is attacking, imagine a lion attacking you. Now it's like whether the financial boogeyman's coming, really there, or whether you imagine the financial boogeyman's coming. Your brain goes stress, 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 releases adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. What do those things do? They release blood sugar and blood fat. Why do they do that? So you can run away. And then what we do is just sit there and stress. So run away or fight. And the way you do that is to do a super intense, brief, sort of activity. And you can even, use this as a PR, right? So just like we would try to PR in Fran, you could try to PR in this, sort of burpee up chain, burpee squat jump up chain. And you can just go, last time I had to do this, I made it to 10. Now let me see where I can get to, right? And it completely starts to allay stuff.
I love the analogy of the lion. I love that. Uh, that's a tough mindset I find with people. I've tried to use that with people, like being chased by like a lion. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna run or are you gonna fight? And I mean, I've been explained it to even peers. Like, look, when I work out, we were actually talking about this today, like a few of us. But like when I work out, like I'm trying to shut everything out. Like when I walk into the gym or it's time to work out, like I need everything to go away. Like I'm in this box and nothing can come into the box because I'm working on me right now. And that's all I want to worry about. the slower workouts have been hard for me historically because they allow thoughts to come in to the workout and they enter my mind. And you start thinking about like, oh, I have that deadline. I gotta send out that email. I have to get back to Holly, or Juvie texted me something that he needed me to come move something at his house, and I got to get back to him. And it allows like all these intrusive thoughts into my mind, and I'm no longer focused on the workout. But I like the idea of like the lion or the bear coming after you, because that's how I approach not most, but at least one or two workouts. And we talked about this previously, like 3 months ago, like the red, yellow, and green days. And it's get into this uncomfortable state to remind myself to one, calm down, and then to two, to fight. You know,
It's the way your physiology built.
Yeah. No, I read something like that like months ago about you know, getting into allowing yourself to get into what they say is called like a fight mode, you know, because it's like the way I look at it when we're working out, and you know, granted it's not the same, but I feel like what your body is responding to and how your body responds, it can be sometimes different than what you're thinking in your mind. You know, it's like attacking versus enduring. So I equate this similar to what you're describing, where it's like, you know, are you fighting or are you fleeing? Like when you're fighting, your body is producing a different response. When you're running away from something, your body's also producing a completely different response, which is like, hold up. We're in a situation right now that is unsafe. Hold, freeze, you know? So that's like one of the things that I've just been like looking up, reading and researching more about is like, is the fight in the freeze mode, and how that kind of plays into like the way we react to things.
Yeah.
Maybe even metabolically, you know?
It's really astute, because when most people think about they even describe the sympathetic response as the fight or flight response, but you're really astute in this, because it's actually three things: fight, flight, and freeze. And you're right, when you freeze and don't move, all this adrenaline, all this blood sugar, all this blood fat circulates around and can do damage. But when you run or fight, when you flight or fight, at least the body gets to use up that energy. But freeze is not a really good thing to do, and that's what most of us do. What we do is just freeze. Now, there's one other thing you can do. Like, let's say you're just like, you know what, Jade, I get it. Like, okay, great. Like, you know, but I'm not the type of person who's going to jump down and do a burpee up chain, you know, for a minute. The other thing you could do is whenever you're afraid, depressed, hurt, suffering, struggling, any of that, just go, maybe I'll call mom and see how she's doing. Or maybe I'll call my brother and see how he's doing, and check on them and say, how are you? Are you anxious? Even though you're the one that's anxious, right? And most likely what they're going to say is they're either going to, one or two things. They're going to be like, you know, I am a little anxious. And then you're going to be able to talk them down, which is talking you down. Or they're going to say, no, I'm good. How are you? And then you're going to say, you know what? I'm a little anxious. And then they're going to talk you down. And so humans are really great lifelines. And that's all you have to do. If you have pain, suffering, worry, just go, hey, man, I got some worry, suffering, whatever. But do it this way. The best response is to find it in someone else first and just help them. Because then you don't feel, because what happens as humans, we go, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to call Brian. He's busy. Like, him and Holly are over there, they're hanging out. I don't want to burden him. Like, you know, I'll just deal with it myself. But instead you go, you know what, which one of my friends could use my support right now? Which one of my family members could, you know, would be happy to hear from me? Who can I help right now? How's my neighbor doing? You know what, I don't know if they're okay, but I'm going to go get them, and I'm going to go get them some toilet paper and some water and just leave it outside their door. Right? You don't even have to talk to them. And just that act of doing that stuff starts to allay some of this stuff in us. This is really where you and I have some really great conversations together about meaning and purpose. And this is really what we're getting into, meaning and purpose. Your purpose is your grand purpose. Like, you're a teacher, you're a coach, that's your purpose. So am I. But you also can have purpose in, you know, mini purpose. And mini purpose is like during this COVID event, or while I'm in Phoenix, right? Is that where you are, in Arizona, Phoenix? Or?
Came back. I forgot.
Okay, so you're back. So you're back in Santa Monica. So while I'm here or there, right? What I will do is I will be this.
I will be this thing to people. And, you know, so, and by the way, no one even has to know. You know how good it will feel? Like if you're just like, you know what, I got, you know, maybe like for me, like I have a little bit of extra cash. So I got a bunch of wine and just set it out here for my neighbors. You know what I mean? Like just, they don't know that I did that, but it made me feel good. And, you know, so it's just my way of kind of being like, okay, cool. That solves some of that angst for me. So when we start showing up for other humans, it's a great opportunity to kind of do that. But it also could just be as simple as, you know, I'm going to put my mask on, go over here to the co-op and, you know, see if anyone needs help with their groceries or anything like that. These are all things that we forget about that have a lot to do with this. And then, you know, the other thing I say about stress too is, I don't know about you, man, but in the beginning, and this was a tough decision for me because when we were going through this, I was like, well, I'm an educator. I got to educate people. But as I was watching the news and all the craziness, and I'm a very measured, agnostic type of person. I'm rational reasoned. I can see lots of different sides, but I was just like, you know what, man, this news stuff isn't good for me. You know, like I'm shutting that stuff off, you know, I'm only good vibes only for me for a little bit, because I was aware enough that I was starting to get, you know, sort of a little bit, you know, stressed myself. And I'm like, I can't show up, you know, in the way I need to show up if I'm going to do that. So these are all things that will work. It's, to me, I go like this. And I guess just to sum this up, to me, I would go like this. To me, it's 3 things, right, that we need to do whenever things get thrown out of whack. One is I go to my plan B nutrition, chicken and broccoli. That's what I do. 2 is I have a plan for acute stress, which is when it wells up in me, that's a storm, man. I have to do something to deal with that in the moment, right? So for me, that's intense exercise, right? That's what does that for me typically. And then I have to do something that makes me feel like I matter and I'm making a difference. And so I go out and start to do that stuff, you know, sort of as well. Now, this is assuming, and you know, you and I, like, we're not going to work out. So I'm just assuming, like, obviously we're talking to a group of people, we're all going to work out. So that's besides the point. If you're not working out, then definitely work out. Like, and if you stop working out, that's unacceptable. That's part of the reason why you're having some issues, because you cannot, like, we are workout people. Show up as a workout person. Like, that's just, you know, we could have that conversation, but that's besides the point. Like, that's number 4, but like, that's just the default. We work out. There's no option otherwise.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
Dude, I couldn't ask for anything more. That's awesome. What was the other thing? Oh, you know what? I feel like you just covered all of it. That's what I love talking to you, man. It's like, you were the first person that popped into my mind. I was like, man, I'm lost. I feel like other people are lost. And it's like, I'm kind of like, okay, but it's like, I could use a little direction still.
Yeah.
And I guess what made me think of this the most was motivation. Motivation was the other one. Like, in times like this, and I feel like you did kind of answer it already, but like, how do you find motivation at times like this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I'll tell you, this is so interesting for me. So what I did is I essentially go like this. I go, in every situation like this, I have an opportunity. Now, and watch what happened here, because I was going in my head. I was like, you know what? This is the perfect opportunity to finish my book. I went to Vegas. I actually think when I first went to Vegas at the beginning of the year, right at December, I think I got this, and I had to come back, and I couldn't work on my book because I was literally crushed for like 10 days, almost 14 days. I had something, maybe this thing, maybe not.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. And now they're thinking that it was probably as early as that. So that was back in, sort of mid-December. Now, and I have this deadline. So now we're 5 months later. I was supposed to have 1 book done and be working on the second. I have neither, basically. I have one that I finished a third of. And so then I just said, okay, what's the opportunity here? I'm obviously not gonna, I'm not in the mental space to deal with this book. It's like, I don't know how much you're into the Tao Te Ching, right? So Taoism, the major principle in Taoism, and Bruce Lee, who's one of my favorites, introduced this to us. He essentially says, and the Tao Te Ching says this, Lao Tzu, it's basically be like water, right? Follow water. What does water do? It flows. And when it runs into something, it doesn't back up and try to run into it again, and back up and try to run into it again, and back up and try to run into it again. What it does is it hits it, it feels it out, it goes, maybe I can go under, oop, nope, can't go that way. Oh, maybe, nope, can't go that way. And then it moves this way. So what I did is I go, maybe I'm going to work on my book. Maybe I'm going to do this and that. And then I basically was like, no, you know what? This is telling me focus on your health, Jade. You have this thing, and, you know, just tighten up on your diet and be a little bit better here. And so I've actually, you know, really started to focus on that, right? Went over, thank you so much, went over and grabbed like a pound of 70 dumbbells, ordered from Rogue, got myself a bench. So I got a few things here, and I've been just working out, laying out in the sun, you know, working hard. I did this, the other thing I did is I said, now's the opportunity to give. It's not about your time, Jade. Let's do a completely free 100% 30-day challenge for metabolic living, you know? And those two things were me being water. They weren't what I planned to do. They weren't what I wanted to do, but it's what sort of happened, right? And so what I would say is embrace those things. Maybe you're listening, not you, but maybe someone's listening to this and they're like, you know, I have this shitty relationship with my mom. I've always wanted to work on it. And this thing came along. My mom's scared. She's dealing with this thing. It's the perfect opportunity for me to fix that relationship. Go spend more time with my mom, or like, you know, take care of her, or show her that I really do love her, right? There's opportunities that we won't look at because we've kind of put those aside, and maybe, just maybe, and it's just a mind game in a sense, but maybe, just maybe, some of those things, this is the perfect time to clean some of that stuff up. Simple things too. Maybe you got, you know, maybe your wood shed or whatever. It's like, I know my dad, he's got this wood shed that has everything in it since I was a kid that just has been stressing him out for 30 years, basically, right? So, you know, maybe for him, it's like, you know, I got the time and the space, I'm gonna take on that project. And so that's kind of how you get motivated. Sometimes if you're beating your head against the thing, I should be motivated for this, I should be motivated for this, I should be motivated for this, but you're not motivated for that, then be like water and find something that you are motivated to do.
That was going to be my next question. It's like, maybe a lot of us feel like this. It's like, you know, like you're trying to get yourself to do this one thing, but you just can't focus enough to do it.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, you can either spend I feel like I either choose to spend all my energy just worrying about it, or just like close the book on it for that particular moment in time and then go move on to something else. In Arizona, what I ended up doing was there was one workout, well, not one, it wasn't even a workout. I think I was just doing too much. You know, I was like trying to film workout videos. I was trying to come up with different workouts. I was trying to come up with different programs. I was trying to test them. I was doing like 100 push-ups and 100 squats every day. And I think it just finally just like caught up. It was like, you know, LA is now 2 weeks longer than the original 2 weeks we had said you were going to be in the stay in place or, you know, this mandate or stay at home mandate. And I wasn't really feeling stressed, but something in my body just let me know, like, slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
Because like I wasn't even lifting anything. My back just like tweaked out of nowhere. It wasn't like I didn't reach down to go pick up like a weight. Yeah. It wasn't like I wasn't like lifting or squatting too much weight. Like I hadn't picked up a bar in like weeks, and it just boom went out. And I was like, what?
Yeah, you know what else cortisol does? Cortisol blocks the production of collagen. It blocks collagen synthesis. And so that's another thing that, you know, when you're sitting around, and also, you know, when you're sort of sitting lots, that also can sort of play a role here. So what I would say though, right, is like, because I know something about you and I know your interests because you and I talk about this sometimes, but getting motivated for you, right, would be something like, okay, you know, what am I really interested in? Well, one thing, or what am I really interested in, or what could I set my mind to doing? And so like we were just talking about how you were messing around with Zoom and looking at different angles and thinking about different ways of presenting online workouts. That's a skill. That's a useful place to put your motivation because it can have ramifications later. Maybe you decide, hey, I'm going to one day do an entire virtual gym, which, by the way, what's really interesting, I've never really heard the word virtual gym more times in the last, you know, and the people who pull that off, right, are going to be in a whole different world. Well, so part of it is too, is when you look at these opportunities, you're someone that's like, oh, I now know how Zoom works. I now know how, I mean, I think you did before, but like some people are figuring out live streams and different angles and how to present certain workouts and all this kind of stuff. I think what what really saps motivation is the following, and I think people will get mad at me, and don't worry, I don't watch much TV, but I've watched more TV in the last few months. Like I went through the whole, The Last Kingdom or whatever, this Viking show or whatever, been watching the hell out of that. But I think,
wanted to watch that.
yeah, but one of the things that I think we do is as soon as we start as humans going all to recreation, we feel useless. And so to me, that's what you got to ask yourself. Like, if you're not motivated, it's because it's not rise to the occasion. Sometimes it's create the occasion. Like, you got to just do something where it's like, I'm going to go up to the top of this hill in my neighborhood 3 times per day. And I'm just going to check off the list every time I do it. And that's the extent of your motivation, right? You got to pick an easy things to do. You don't say I'm going to go up 20 times, right? But you say, I'm going to do 10 push-ups morning, afternoon, evening, and night. You ask yourself, what are the chances I'll do that? Well, that's pretty easy. I'll do that. It's like level 10. I can get that done. Then you focus on that, right? Like, one of the things I used to do when I drove across country, and I still do when I drive across country, I'm like, oh, let me see how many, today is push-up day. Let me see how many, it's an AMRAP push-up day. So basically, I have 1 minute at each place I stop to get as many push-ups as I can. And what I do is at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, you got in 200 push-ups today, because every time I stopped, I had to get these push-ups in. And these are the games we humans can play. It's part of the wonderful thing about our brains. So we can just start doing things like this. As soon as though we just fall into this recreation thing. Hey, what do you want to watch? Hey, what's for dinner? Hey, do you want some of these nachos? As soon as you start doing that, then of course your motivation starts to go down. But it's a really interesting psychology study too. It's called the 5-minute rule, where they essentially say with cleaning, this is true of everything, by the way. They say, set your clock for 5 minutes and just start cleaning. And what oftentimes happens is you just lose yourself and you end up cleaning for like an hour, right? And so it's just this kind of thing where you go, I'm gonna set something that is useful to myself or others. And oftentimes for others is really nice, because that helps allay even more stress, and get that stuff done. And so you just create this thing instead of banging your head against the wall of like, okay, so you're not in the gym. You're not in the gym, or you're not getting your workouts in. Can you get, you're not a walker. So how about trying to get 10,000 to 20,000 steps in a day? It's setting these other things that could be beneficial for you in the future as a human.
That's funny, man, that you bring that up, because actually all those things you mentioned, those are the things that have uniquely worked for me. Like on our drive back, every time we stopped, I pulled the sandbag out of the car and I squatted it. I think I did like 3 sets of like as many as I could. And I don't know. I mean, I don't even know why I chose to do it. I think part of it, I thought it was just funny. Two, we were going to be at the rest stop, and we were going to stop for who knows how long to change the boys, let them just like run around for a little bit. But it just kind of helped pass the time. And also with just trying to knock out and dedicate time to do certain things, that's something actually I've been doing even before COVID was, if I'm going to write like in the morning, I I dedicate like 10 to 15 minutes just to write about whatever, maybe just journal. 10 minutes on my phone, 3, 2, 1, go. Just whether I write anything or not in 10 minutes, like you get 10 minutes. And if like I pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, if I can keep going and like I don't want to stop, then I don't stop. It's just like you said. So
Absolutely,
it's nice
man.
to know that those things are something that we could all employ and they work.
Yeah. And think about this. I mean, if I had kids, like, I would be using them, right, in a sense, because it's really interesting. And with just people in your lives, like children are kind of cool, because if I had your boys, what I'd probably do is I'd probably do something, and I'm sure you do this kind of stuff, but knowing my personality, I'd be like, I want to see like, what's one lesson that I could just repeat again and again and again this week, and see if by the end of the week, just subtly, they start saying it to each other. They start doing it.
I used to do that all the time.
Yeah, right.
But actually now what's crazy is they'll say stuff that I was doing, that like I was playing that game like 6 months ago, and it's like now it just like comes out of nowhere.
And you're like, oh, it did seep in.
Yeah, and Holly looks at me like, why did you teach them that?
I love it, dude. And by the way, it's the same thing. I'll give you a subtle. I wrote about this in my book, Next Level Tribe, with Danny. But here's an interesting thing when you're dealing with humans. Like, let's say you are one of these people that has a shitty relationship with your mother or your father, and you really do want to correct it. One of the things that you can make as a goal is you can say, let's just say that you see your parents as annoying and judgmental, right? And always in your business, let's say. Well, what if you just decided, you just said, you know what? I'm just going to decide that they're not in my business. And I'm just going to start telling them everything that's going on before they even ask. I'm going to call them up and be like, hey, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, and play this game with them and see what happens. You know what will happen most of the time? All of a sudden, your whole perception will change and they will stop asking you and basically be like, why is she calling me all the time? Or why is he calling me all the time? And humans are funny this way, but these are little games that we can play that are useful actually, because they actually lead to good quality outcomes in terms of relationships. And so we oftentimes want them to stop doing the thing when there's little subtle psychological things we can do. Like, for example, if you think that they don't love you enough, you just go, you know what, I'm gonna tell my mom, I'm gonna text her every day this week, or at least 4 times this week, how much I love her, how appreciative I am of her, right? And you know, the first part of you just goes, if you don't have a great relationship with your mom, you're like, oh my God, she, you know, blah. But it's not for your mom. It's just to see what happens. And maybe, no guarantee, but maybe at the end of that, she may, or next month, like with your boys, next month you get a text out of nowhere from your mom, and she hasn't done it in 10 years. Just say, hey, honey, I'm just checking up on you. Just want you to know I was thinking about you and I love you so much. Meanwhile, you're the one who planted that seed 8 months earlier, and you can do it during COVID and just have fun with stuff like this. I mean, that's how my brain works like this. Maybe other people don't resonate with this, but it's the way we humans, we're always wanting other people to look at us, you know? And I just go, you know what? You know, there's an opportunity. If my philosophy has become, if I want Brian to like me and look at me and respect me, I have to like Brian, look at Brian and really respect him and really be interested in his life. Like if I want you to ask me about, hey, Jade, how's your book going? Then I'm going to ask you, man, how's the gym going? How are the boys? How's Holly? You know what I mean? And if I don't ever ask you that, why would I ever expect you to take any interest in me? And this is how we humans walk around in the world. I don't know. Brian never says hi to me, never asks me anything about my life, this and that. And then you got to ask yourself, have you ever done that for Brian? Ever? And this is how we humans do this. It's like you do it to Brian, or you do it to someone else. Or you do it to someone else, or you just make that your goal to do that. If you're looking for it, do it for others. And this, by the way, is, believe it or not, it actually helps our immune system when we are purpose-driven in this way. To me, that's what purpose-driven means. It just means I'm going to choose a purpose in this situation. I might have a life purpose, but I'm going to choose a purpose right now, you know, in a sense, a goal, a positive outcome that can positively influence other people without need for reciprocation or acknowledgement. And when you do that, magical things happen. You know, they just do. So this to me goes far beyond. It's part of the reason, you know, why we are even on this planet. You know, it's not all just, you know, chicken and broccoli.
That is just, it's crazy to me because it's like, I would almost think that everyone has been sitting in their house and coming to this realization on their own that like, oh, you know, let me put different energy out there. But it's not necessarily the case. And it feels like sometimes, and I don't know, maybe it's a realization that I've come to because I find myself going on kind of like opposite ends of it, where it's like, and it's like, because it's me too. It's like, sometimes I'm like on this one end where I'm like, I'm going to reach out to my dad today. Like, I always call my dad so the boys can talk to him. But how often have I been calling my dad just to talk to my dad? So I did it like once in the first few weeks because I just had, I don't know. I just felt like I should do that. And I think it was kind of like, hey.
What's up? You all right? Anything wrong?
What are the boys doing? And I'm like, well, the boys are asleep and I just wanted to see how you were doing.
Love that.
But and then, like I said, there's other times where it's like everything just turns negative. And it's like, I shut down. Like, I think I do pretty good at crawling out of the hole, and I don't stay there long because I just don't like to be there.
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling. And I know, like, reach out to somebody, send them a text, call somebody. Like, I probably FaceTimed more people in the last 2 months than I've FaceTimed in the existence of FaceTime.
I know. I know.
It sounds shitty. It sounds shitty because I'd rather probably just convey any emotion over text message.
Yeah. Same.
And I've done more FaceTime calls than I've probably spent talking on the phone in the existence of my iPhone at the same time. So I'm on both ends, and I feel like people go in different directions. It's like not everyone's going in that, like, I'm gonna do something positive today. It's like that positive stuff I can save it for tomorrow. I'm just gonna.
In the end, it's not, even if you are a completely self-centered person, you get no benefit whatsoever from living in that state. But I will say this, because I forget who asked me this the other day. They said, dude, like, you never seem like you're down. You never seem like you're having a rough time. And I'm like, dude, I go base level as much as the next human. The difference, though, is that when I go base level, I'm like you. I think you and I are similar. I just go, Jade, dude, who is this serving? Right? Like, and it just reminds me, that's the importance of having an honor code. An honor code is the anchor and the lighthouse that says, dude, you're not in alignment. You're not being who you said you want to be. Actually, I just wrote this up on my board. You know that dude, Luca Hosevere? Do you know him from up in Seattle? Anyway, I did a podcast with him yesterday, and he gave me this great line, which I'll give you guys. It says, he goes, listen, he goes, I don't know who taught me this. He goes, but here's the way I see it. He goes, whenever I'm stressed out or I'm reaching for a goal or I feel this, he goes, I do three things. One, I do what I said I was going to do, right? So if I said I was going to call my dad, or I said I was going to get a workout, or I said I was going for a walk, I do it. He said, two, I do what is required, whatever's required. Like, sometimes what's required is not necessarily what I want to do. I don't necessarily want, this as a dad, it's like you don't want to get up, change diapers and do the thing and, all the stuff and get up in the middle of the night, but you do what is required. And the final thing is you do it despite your feelings. And that's the part here where it's like, when I go base level, I said I was going to be a positive, productive, giving, generous human. Therefore, if I said that. I do what is required. What is required? Then I show up, even when I don't want to, even when I'm tired, right? When Brian or Juvie or whatever, like, you guys haven't done this to me, but I would be there if you were like, dude, man, I hate to bother you. I know it's 10 o'clock at night, but I got this big ass, chest of drawers I need to move. Can you come over and help me move it? Then I'm going to go, fuck, in my head. I'm going to go, I don't want to fucking do that. But then I'm going to be like, what did I say? I said I'm going to be generous and giving, and I love these dudes. So I'm going to do what's required to have a real relationship with these dudes, right? And then I'm going to do it despite my feelings, despite the fact it's 10 o'clock, I'm getting ready to go to bed. I don't want to go help you move that chest of drawers. And then when I do that, right, then I come back and go, that's what it's about being human. That's all it's about. Those things, even when I am being, nasty and, having a bad time or whatever, I have to go back and say, do what you said you do. But guess what, dude? Most people don't ever sit and take the time to write down the honor code in the first place, so they don't know what they said they were going to do. It literally goes back to the same thing we were talking about, chicken and broccoli. It does. It basically says, what did you say you were going to do? When in doubt, I'm going to eat chicken and broccoli. Jade, what did you say you were going to do? When in fear, when in pain, when in suffering. I said, I'm going to go solve that pain, someone else's pain and suffering. Now the opportunity has come. People need help. Brian and Juvie need me to move their thing, and I'm not going to do it now. Like, that's literally, it's literally all about that as humans, I think. Now, some people may or may not resonate with that, but to me, that's literally how it works. And the more you do that, your brain is watching you all the time. So it's like, okay, Brian, okay, Jade, you said you were going to do this. I'm going to watch you. And if you don't do it, I'm going to call your bluff. I'm going to say you're full of shit. And then I'm not going to trust you when you want to change your diet, or you want to run that 5K, or you want to save, $5,000 every month, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. I'm not going to believe you can do it because you won't do the simple things you said you would do.
That's powerful. That's super powerful stuff. I was working on my honor code a while back. I got to revisit that.
I revisit it all the time.
So it's okay to change it.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have my honor code now kind of tattooed on my body because it's like, I did it so often, you know what I mean, that it's pretty solid now, but I still go back. Like, for example, one of the things in my honor code is I have a kind of a negative statement about fame in my honor code. It basically says, and then I ask myself, I'm like, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, kind of contradictory too, though, Jade, right? Because you want to help a lot of people. And if you want to help a lot of people, and that's what you say you're about, and you want to be generous and giving and this and that, fame only helps that, doesn't hurt that. So what is it about that is a problem for you, right? And so I literally take this, so I go back and say, I'm going to remove that from my honor code. That's not on my body. Like, I have principles on my body, but like my honor code actually has a statement about, fame. And for whatever reason, because I guess I thought it was cool maybe at the time, and I wasn't as into it as I am now, where now I'm like, that means nothing. Like, if you're really into helping people, fame only can help that, right? It's the same thing with people like, with money issues. They're like, oh, people with money, blah, blah, blah. I want to help people. But think about it. The more money you have, the more people you can help, right? So like, it's this weird thing that sometimes you have to revisit your honor code, because when you first wrote it, you may have been you may not have been mature, right? There's what we know. There's what we know we don't know. And there's what we don't know we don't know. And that's everything. So you may have been in a place where you needed a certain perception shift to see the right tweak to the honor code. And I changed it a lot in the beginning, and now I change it very rarely.
I got to revisit it. I remember I started it, and just like you said at the time, maybe I wasn't just mature enough, or there were just so many things surrounding.
Yeah, you didn't have kids at the time. You didn't have the twins at the time, probably. That's a big change.
But I know, because I don't know if it was in your book, but it might have been in your book, but there was also a slide that you had that you shared like a long time ago about the process to take, or a process to use to help identify and create.
Yeah, I'm gonna repost that, because a couple people have asked me about that. They're like, "Hey, remember that? Where is that?" It's way back on my IG feed, but I'll repost it.
I think I have a screenshot of it somewhere. I gotta look for it. Yeah. Hopefully, it wasn't on my other phone though, because that's dead. But thank you, man. Definitely got a lot of good sound bites for sure.
Cool, man.
And learned a lot more than I had expected.
Dude, I love you, man. I miss you guys. Actually, it's funny. Now that you're home, it's hilarious. Was it this morning? Were you running with the boys this morning?
No, I don't do that. That's not something I do.
Because like, someone goes past me with twins and had a cap on backwards and had your bill. And I was just like, I was waiting for Laura, because I took her and her dog to the vet. And I was like, I was wondering if that's Brian, but he's in Arizona. But you're back.
I'm gonna put out like a running challenge with the gym, either tonight or tomorrow, just because I feel like the motivation thing is, with the new announcement that the governor made today, with like LA staying in place longer than, through July is insanity.
And honestly, at this point, man, I'm all for wanting to save lives, but like, you got the economy. It's tough. I'm so glad I'm not that dude Newsom. That is really, really, and I don't know who our mayor is, but Newsom is the governor, right?
Newsom is the governor. And
I wouldn't want to be those dudes, man. They got to make some tough decisions.
Garcetti is his name.
Garcetti, that's right.
It sucks, man. It does suck to be them, because I can only imagine, like, it's probably not solely their idea, but they're the ones that have to deliver the message.
And they're the ones that take the blame.
Your fault. Yeah. That guy sucks.
Yeah. Someone asked me about that today, and I said, listen, I feel like Newsom is a lot like me from what I've learned about him and read about him. He seems like a dude he says, let me see the data. Tell me what the ramifications are if we don't do this. Tell me how many deaths, this and that. And those are impossible decisions to make. And then you just got to make the decision. You're just like, okay, this many suicides are estimated if we keep the economy closed. This is the damage that it could be. But, he's probably, if it was me, I would be like, all right, but if we open too soon, are we just going to essentially make it worse over the long run and extend this? Is this a matter of just ripping the Band-Aid off or pulling the Band-Aid off slowly? And I think he's opting for ripping the Band-Aid off and just quashing this as much as possible. But we'll see, man. It definitely is not fun for any of us.
No. And I guess in part, like, I knew this was coming. I don't even know who in his camp, or like what person was kind of like leaking these things. but it's like everyone kind of knew like this is what was going to come today,
Yeah.
and it's just he just showed it. I didn't watch it. I just Holly was telling me,
Well,
but
time's going to tell, man. Because think about it, right? We'll see. We'll see if next year, this time, if the rest of the country's still dealing with it more so than California.
but Tennessee, is it Tennessee? No, but yeah, Tennessee is an open state,
Mm-hmm,
and like Arizona, I think opened up more stores
mm-hmm.
for businesses recently, like as of like this week.
Yeah, so we're gonna see how they fare, and we'll learn a lot, right? So a lot of people will be like, "See, told you so," and it's not. I don't even do that. I just go, Tennessee. We'll see. It's not a win or lose thing. It's just like
Yeah.
Tennessee's taking a risk, California's taking a risk. They're each making different decisions, and we're gonna see who was right. And we don't know. And I'm not on anyone's team. I just think if it were me, knowing my brain, I would probably be more of the Garcetti way. I would probably be like, we've got to save lives first, and the economy, and I guess there's different realities. Like probably Tennessee, they can't afford to stay closed as long as California, maybe because they don't maybe have the resources we have. But it's going to be so interesting, man. But one thing I think business-wise, that one thing that and you and I have talked about this before, but that challenge, it may be really interesting if you start, putting out to the community some of these fear PRs. Like, I wonder what it would be, if it would be cool if you were just like, if you were something like, all right, this week, here's your workouts for the week, this and that. But also what I want you to do, I'm challenging you guys to do, something to help to do some kind of volunteer stuff, and then have them post their things or, like what they did. And like, just trying to like use that whole fear PR concept, that concept about what will you do? What do you feel called to do for purpose? Like I did this thing. Like I went over to, I don't know, I don't know. I had a friend who had, this wood shed that was in the back of their yard that's been building up for this time. And I said, hey man, I went over there with a friend without him even knowing, and tore the thing down and sort of took it away. Or, I went surfing for the first time, or, now that people can surf, I hear.
I was just going to say, like, maybe more people would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know water is like one of the fears that you have too, right?
Terrified, dude. Terrified of the ocean. I do not like the ocean. No.
I don't hate the ocean, but I'm kind of like with you. Like, I'm just not a good open water swimmer.
Yeah.
No.
I don't love it. And it's funny, I used to be able to swim when I was young, real good, but now, no way, man. I did a couple PRs already, and I plan on keeping doing them. One was shallow water scuba diving in the ocean. Another was 400 meters off the coast in Cabo. I jumped in and free swam in the ocean. That freaked me out. Like that was really like almost, I don't get anxiety, but that was like, oh, dude. And the reason why is because the current was strong, and I felt myself getting pulled away from an anchored boat. And I was kind of freaking out. And I remember telling myself, like, dude, you need to calm down and dig in right now and get back to that fucking boat. But that's the last time I did. That's my last fear PR in the water. And it may have been a little bit too much of a stretch, because the scuba diving, I could kind of put my feet down. I could see, I could see the sand beneath me, like, 14 meters down, or not 14 meters, but like whatever it is, 14 feet. Yeah, feet. So it wasn't, I could probably swim down real quick, touch it, and come up. But this was like kind of open water swimming way beyond. Like you could see the beach, but I don't know that I could get there. So that wigged me out a little bit. I haven't been back in the water since, so I have to keep doing that, because my goal over these next 3 years was to do that.
I got to figure out something like that too. Like I couldn't think off the top of my head, like what that would be.
Well, I don't know, maybe, like, I don't even know if the community would be into this, but it could be a way for you to just feel it out and say, we are this week, like, and maybe you get everyone on a Zoom call and like, hey, what did you do this week? Or what was your thing this week? And, how did it go? And then you just reinforce the idea of this fear PR. It's just like, hey, we're going to start at level 1. Everyone goes through, here's what my intention is, right? Well, okay, so let's see if you do that. And then the next week, you're like, all right, what did you do this week? Now you're at PR level 2, and everyone goes through this, or maybe everyone does their honor code. I don't even know if people be into that, but it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least it's a way to keep the conversation going.
I'm into it, and I think I was just part of my thought process was or is to just go through the process and share pieces of it because I was talking to Juvie about this yesterday. It's like, unfortunately, you're never going to really get all the gratification of seeing all the people experiencing what you're sharing. For example, like you may put out this workout and you may get like 10 likes. That's not important, but people might have seen it and have done the workout. And regardless if they commented in your post and said that they did it or not, like it still happened. And it's like, it's the same thing with, some of the workout philosophies or the way I choose to do or approach certain workouts, which is like, I'm either going to kick this workout's ass or it's going to have to kill me. It's like one or the other.
Yeah. Actually, here's an
Not
idea.
not everyone messes with that. People,
Yeah.
I've said that to people and then they look at me like, yeah, but if I go faster, then I did that. And I'm like, what? No, it's different.
Yeah, it's totally different. Actually, I just had an idea that you might want to try. This might, now that you're back in Santa Monica, this might be kind of fucking cool. I don't know if people be down for it, but what if you set up, you ever did one of these adventure races where it's basically like you run to a particular thing and at one place you have to like do a set of exercise, another place you do a fucking Sudoku, and another place you have to do another, like, what if you did, because that's social distancing, you could run the workouts and you could basically be like, you're there, the trainer's there, and you have like, I don't know, maybe a few stations, you're wearing your mask and you have a squirt bottle of disinfectant for the dumbbells. And then basically you're like, you basically have the workout for that day lasts 4 hours. All the trainers show up for, that thing. They just basically hang out in their stations and people come in and you basically time them, on the loop. And so they say, here's the loop that you're running. Let's see how fast you can do it. You go down to Ocean Boulevard, to Ocean Ave. You got to make a right. You're going to find Juvie's going to be there with a barbell, 95-pound barbell for women, 135-pound. For men, you're going to do 50 squat, thrusters at that thing. Then you got to fucking run up the California incline or, whatever. And then you'll find Olivia waiting there, and Olivia's going to have something for you to do. And then you basically see how fast they get it done. And then that's their WOD for the day. You know what I mean? Like maybe you could start running workouts like that.
That would be a cool little experiment.
It would, right?
I've done something like that. We called it a scavenger hunt. I did it in Chicago.
There you go, man. Do it like on a Saturday, and if it works and people love it, then you can be like, what was your time? You know what I mean? And then you can print on, they can go into the boards and it's basically, and who knows, maybe people love that so much and that might actually bring people in. Just say, hey, anyone else want, it's free for the CrossFit community, but anyone else who wants to do the workouts are $10 to run the course.
That'd be pretty, that's interesting.
You just have waivers at the beginning. Someone shows up, hey, you just have your Wodify, have your Wodify account there. Hey, have you worked out at CrossFit Sandbox before? No big deal here. Just fill out the form on the thing. Cool. You got the waiver, $10. Cool. All right. Here's what you're gonna do. Blah 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 blah. Go. They're off and they're going.
Like you're basically describing like setting up at different parts of the beach or around Santa Monica.
I actually think around Santa Monica, and then you just basically be like, look, if any cops come or whatever, we'll be, we all have our cell phones, so we can just be like, hey, we're, just running a workout and be safe. You got a mask, and the trainers will have masks on, and sterilization. They all have like, and one thing you have a set of dumbbells, another thing, so like, and I can help you you come up with the workouts, but we can all come up. You just be the Juke. You come up with one, Jade, you come up with one, I'll come up with one, and you just start doing them, right? Every other day, maybe you have these workouts and see, for all you know, the whole damn community is going to start showing up.
What do you think is going to happen to the beach this weekend?
I was told by somebody that it's going to be a wet sand policy. And basically what that means is that there's no congregating on the beach. If you're in the wet sand, using the wet sand, you can do it. So if you're running in the wet sand, if you're surfing. So in other words, what they're saying is wet sand only, meaning you have to be up where the breakers are. You can't be out there sitting around drinking beers, just hanging. You have to be engaged in some kind of activity.
Which
basically meant surfers and exercisers.
So you can't bring like a kettlebell to the sand and do that?
That's what you probably could, but you just go down near the wet area.
Oh, you can't do it? What? How does that?
I think that what they were trying to get at, and I asked the same thing, and I was like, and I don't know, by the way, maybe this is Laura that told me, I forget who told me this, and then I said, oh, I think I see what they're doing. They're basically saying that you can't congregate, because if it's a wet sand only beach, that means you can walk on the beach, you can run on the beach, because you're going to want to run in the wet sand, you know, the hard sand anyway. You can surf, right? But you can maybe sit down near the wet sand if you want to sit, but at least then they could keep you a distance apart. But what you can't do is just spread out all over the sand. I think the whole point is, yes, people can come to the beach, but we do not want the beaches to get packed. I think they were trying to figure out a way to be like, we don't want our beaches to turn into summertime Santa Monica, which it will if they just open them all back up. Next thing you know, it's going to be packed down there.
I think that's what happened in Newport Beach, right? In Huntington Beach. That's what happened.
Yeah, and then they shut it down, right? Again.
They shut it down, but people protested.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's an interesting idea. I'm really into that. I'm going to talk to maybe Juvie and Olivia and some of the others and see how we could.
Hey, if you wanted to, you literally could be like, Juvie, just go outside your apartment. You've got equipment there. Like, you know, we all have equipment. Jade, I have some of your equipment. Just be like, Jade, it's going to be Jade's apartment, Juvie's apartment, my apartment, and you know, we're all here. So it's like, that's what they have to do.
We were waking up, we were working out at 6:30 every single day for about like 2-3 weeks. And there was one day, he actually came back to Santa Monica because he had something he needed to do here. So he had come back because they're staying in Lancaster. And there was a run in the workout, and normally he was just like doing double unders or running in place or something like that. And then he was going to go run this day because he was in Santa Monica. It's at like 6:45 in the morning or 6:30 because we were waking up we were getting together at 6:15.
Yeah.
And he put like a mask on to go running outside. And then he came back and I go, dude, I'm like, no one's even awake right now.
I've been walking all over the place, dude, without a mask. And I walked past two cops, because, you know, I live, you haven't been to my new place, but you know the ballpark.
I have. Zero.
Oh, you have, okay, that's right. So the ballpark's right here. So I go and walk around that ballpark, and I walk right past two Santa Monica cops. They weren't wearing masks. I mean, I basically put distance between us. But I was like, hey, how you guys doing? They're like, good. They didn't say anything to me.
So funny. It was so
it's
funny.
Funny, too, they were talking, but they kept distance, but neither one of them were on masks. But they were like, you know, you could tell they were keeping distance from each other. Then I walk up, none of us had masks on. And I've been out a lot, actually. So I've seen, I don't know, maybe 50% of people with masks.
Yeah, it's about the same. I think like in our new part of the neighborhood, there are more people wearing masks, but there are a lot more like an older crowd up on 20th. So you see a lot of the older people always wearing masks, and you see a lot of the younger people running around that don't have masks.
Yeah.
But in the stores, everyone has one.
Oh yeah, they won't let me in any of the stores. I've been hitting my co-op and mainly Bristol Farms, which I found that's the easiest store to get in and out of.
Well, rumor has it that Costco has a shortage of meat.
I think based on what we're seeing in the supply chain, that's gonna perhaps start drifting. I don't think it will affect a lot of the natural farmers, which is going to be interesting too, right? Because it's affecting the mass meat marketers, which is really interesting. So some of these sort of small farms, grass-fed beef farms and stuff like that, they're not going to get hit as hard, which is, you know, so there's a lot of good that's coming out of it. It's not to mention pollution. Well, I don't know if you've looked up at the sky lately, but during the middle of this, like last week, I could see the stars here. I was blown away.
You know, a few weeks in, I had seen that a couple of handles that I follow had posted like shots of Los Angeles, like pre-COVID and then during the lockdown, and you could just like see almost every single building in downtown. You can see the mountains. It's crazy.
It's really neat, actually. Yeah, it's like so there's some things that are really interesting in this time, man. It's like we're gonna look back at this shit and be like, remember that fucking shit? Although part of me goes, we may never look back because things are always gonna be different, you know. Like at this point, because now that we've gotten here, this has not been the first, nor will it be the last virus. But you know, probably your boys, like they'll probably get this again. Like you'll be like, you guys were too young to remember, but back when you were, you know, little boys, we had the first coronavirus thing, and then, you know, 10, maybe 15 years from now, we'll deal with another one of this severity, and they won't probably remember this much, you know?
Well, what do you think is going to happen when, at the end of all this, it's like fast forward 6 months from now, when there is a vaccine, and they're looking at all the data again, and you know they make the data adjustments, and the final number or the percentage at the end was 0.1% of the people that had COVID died.
Yeah.
What is the world or the community going to say, and how are they going to react when now it looked like, as you know, now it's going to look like we just overreacted.
I think we probably did, and it's probably a good thing. So what I think is going to happen, I hope, is that people go, yeah, we overreacted, but now we are prepared. Because the way, actually, it's funny. Me and my brother, who've been talking about this throughout, we're basically like, look, this is a smack on the wrist. Like, it could have been a lot fucking worse. And
Right.
so, and we don't think it's as near as bad as we thought. But I can't imagine it's going to come out like the idea that I think it's still going to be way worse than a flu, because we've already lost. The thing is, they might be overcounting, but they also might be undercounting. So you're right. We don't know. We may get to the end of this and it won't be 6 months. It'll probably be 2 years, right? Before we go back and go, yeah, here's how many people actually died from coronavirus estimated here, and you know, that kind of thing. But one of the things that I do is I just go, even if that's the case, it's a good thing, because like your boys, let's say they're in middle school, they're in high school now, and something like this hits, we're going to be far more prepared. You know, it's like back in the days before there were, like, you know, remember the first school shootings? Like now, at least you can be like, if a school shooting goes off at my kid's school, I know they have things in place like locking doors and, you know, all that kind of stuff. That it's going to be the same thing here, where there'll be procedures in place because of what happened that make us safer. And then we'll have to deal with the next shit, you know?
Right. That's a good perspective on it, or a good outlook. Never thought of it that way. You know,
But, you know, we are dealing with some serious issues around, you know, freedom, you know, and those, like, I can definitely relate. I don't know where I stand on it yet, because I'm, you know, right now I'm like, you know, yeah, I understand we're inconvenienced and all that kind of stuff. And I certainly think, like, what was it, that woman who's, you know, I think Laura was telling me, so a hair cutter was cutting people's hair in their home, and then they tried to come and arrest her, and then the neighbors came out, like, you know, neighborhood militia came out and said, you're not arresting her. And there was sort of a standoff with cops. There's a few stories like that where I'm just like, I can definitely understand not opening up the beaches. You know, that's a public place. It does put people at risk. But the idea that if you're a business owner and you, like, for me, you should be able to, if you wanted to, you should be able to be like, you know what, guys, the fucking gym is open. We've decided we're going to take the risk. We're opening up the gym. Here's the things we're going to put in place. You're free to come or not come. And then at that point,
they did that in Riverside.
I think so. And that's where I go, you know, like, in the end, I don't think, based on, you know, the country you live in, man, I'm on the side, even though I think those right now, I would be like, Brian, I don't think that's a good idea. But let's say 6 months from now, I might be like, dude, like, honestly, you got to take care of your kids, your livelihood. You got to do the things that you need to do. And everyone knows the risk. It's kind of like knowing the risk of driving, you know, under the influence, or knowing the risk of smoking, or, you know, there's consequences to that kind of stuff. But people can make their own decisions. My whole thing is, I think that, like, as the government, you should be able to say, like, you can't have mass gatherings in public places. You know what I mean? Like, that's under the government purview. But to say you can't run a business, you can't make your livelihood, you know, and they're only going to give you $1,200, like, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And the longer this goes on, that's going to come to a head. And I don't know what the solution is to that. Right now, I'm more on the side of, people are dying. We have to save lives. It's still, if we just open up the economy, a lot of people are going to die. Think about it, man. The average, like, last year, I think flu was like just shy of 60K dead from the flu. And they're not all accurate either, right? So we don't know if that's an underestimation, overestimation. We're at, I think, 80,000 from this already, and it's only been, 4.5 months. So imagine what happens across the whole year. And that's more deaths from this in 4.5 months than from the entire flu season for the year. Is that, is that a risk that people want to, sort of deal with? I don't know. It's a hard discussion, man. I definitely would not want to be that dude, Gavin Newsom. I wouldn't want to be, I can't stand Donald Trump, but I wouldn't want to be him either. I feel bad for him. It's like, this is a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, I seen him on the news when we were in Arizona, because it was just on TV, and I'm like, man,
Dude's a nut.
yeah, there's nothing he can say. There's nothing he can say that's gonna sound good.
I don't think there's not much he said since he's been in office that sounds good.
Nothing, man. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Well, I appreciate it, man. I gotta get going. But
Yeah, me too, man. I'm gonna go for a walk. Love you, brother. My love to Holly.
I will.
All right. Later.
Later. Bye.